Good evening. Hi, everyone. On behalf of the California High-Speed Rail Authority, welcome, muy bienvenidos, to our formal public scoping meeting for the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section of the California High-Speed Rail Authority. My name is Genoveva Arellano, and as a member of the Authority Outreach Team, I will serve as moderator of today's meeting. I will be going over some general and specific information about how today's meeting will be conducted. So please get yourself comfortable. We are starting here at 5 o'clock and we'll be concluding at 7:30 p.m. Today's public scoping meeting covers the entire project area between Los Angeles and Anaheim, and further to the east, including Colton and Lenwood, which are the new project components to the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section for high-speed rail. As many of you know, the California High-Speed Rail program has been in the planning stages for many years, actually since the 1990s. In 2008, California voters passed Proposition 1A, which allowed it to move forward with planning and obtaining funding for construction. Steadily, the project has moved forward, and the first phase is already under construction in California's Central Valley. Today, we are discussing the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section, as I mentioned, which is one of 4 Southern California sections and will provide a vital link between Los Angeles Union Station and the Anaheim Regional Transportation Intermodal Center, otherwise known as ARTIC. While we have previously conducted scoping for this project section, the authority, through its partnership with BNSF Railway, identified the need to incorporate 2 new project components in the Inland Empire as part of this project. We know that the Lausanne corridor, where the high-speed train will travel, is vital to current and future passenger rail and goods movement for not just the immediate area, but well beyond. Therefore, it became necessary to develop a strategy to avoid interrupting operations in this corridor during high-speed rail construction, and to accommodate future freight service, high-speed rail service, and passenger rail service after high-speed rail construction. So the addition of these 2 project components in Colton and Lenwood serve this goal and will be included in the project description and as part of the environmental documents for this project section. This required the development of a revised notice of preparation and notice of intent and formal scoping, which brings us here today. We'll talk more about this, and I'll give you a little bit more background on that environmental process and those documents, but let me review a few things for you first. For you to know, the authority has been conducting extended outreach to make sure that our affected public, all those who have been involved to now and those who are new to the program, is aware and has access to this latest project information. Before I begin reviewing the specific instructions for you to participate in today's scoping meeting, I would like for our project team from the California High-Speed Rail Authority and the BNSF Railway, who are here to hear your formal comments and to answer any general questions that you may have. I would like for them to introduce themselves. You see them on the screen before I continue with some more instructions and background information for your benefit. So first, Ofelia Alcantara, if you can please introduce yourself so people can be familiar with your face and your voice. Please introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks, Heno. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ofelia Alcantara. I am the Interim Regional Director for the California High-Speed Rail Authority. Welcome to our scoping meeting tonight.
Thank you, Ofelia. Diane, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Diane Ricard, and I am the project manager for high-speed rail on the Los Angeles to Anaheim high-speed rail section.
Excellent. And Lena, please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Lena Kent. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the BNSF Railway. And I just want to say thank you for joining tonight. I'm really looking forward to hearing your comments and appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us for this important meeting.
Excellent. You all are in very good hands with this panel. They will be walking you through a formal presentation and hearing your comments as you have them during our formal comment period. We have other staff available if needed to answer general questions as might come up, but I'll go through that procedure for you before we begin our public comments. So the purpose of the scoping meeting. So tonight is the first of 2 virtual public scoping meetings, which are formal opportunities for you to provide the authority with your comments and to have general questions answered about the scope of this upcoming environmental document. So it's a very specific objective that we have to hear your comments about the scope that is being proposed for this project. These 2 meetings and the formal 30-day public comment period, which commenced Tuesday, August 25th, and it will conclude on Thursday, September 24th. I'll be repeating those dates to you. It's a 30-day comment period. These were announced through 2 formal notices, which are the notice to proceed. We also refer to that as the NOP, and the notice of intent, which is also referred to as the NOI. Now, these are formal notices, and this entire environmental process are required by both state and federal law, and these notices comply with those regulations respectively. If not already, I encourage you to read these documents as they contain all the information publicly available right now about this proposed project, including its purpose, its need, and the alternatives that are being proposed. And they are not lengthy documents. The NOP is 11 pages and the NOI is 5 pages long. As we go through tonight's meeting, I'll be referring to you and visiting our website so you can see where you can actually access those documents yourselves. Again, that has all the information publicly available on this project section, and we encourage you to read that in order to inform your comment on the section. These notices and all other public project information is available to you now on our project website, which is, and if you have a pencil and paper, you might want to jot this down, or on your computer. The web address is meethsrsocal.org. I'll be repeating that throughout the meeting, but let me go ahead and spell that out. It's meethsrsocal.org. meethsrsocal.org. This is our specific project website for the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section, where you can receive, again, all the information that is currently available to you. I mentioned the NOP and the NOI documents. They are also available, in addition to English, in 5 other languages, including Spanish, Tagalog, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. Again, the NOP and the NOI have been available for your review since Tuesday, August 25th, and all formal comments are due from you all and any agencies by Thursday, September 24th. So we have another 2 weeks for you to formulate your comments and to please submit them, if not tonight. There are additional ways besides tonight's virtual public scoping meeting for you to provide us your formal comments, which we'll review during the presentation today, and I'll be repeating throughout the meeting, along with how to access the project website, how to schedule an appointment in case you wanted to have a further conversation with one of our staff, an office hour appointment. We can go over that with you if you so choose. In addition, prior to the release of the draft environmental document next year, so we'll go over that schedule with you. So the actual environmental document, which is a draft, is not scheduled for release until next year, next spring. There will be another round of open house meetings. So we'll continue our outreach with you to make sure that you're informed about the process and have the opportunity to talk to us and educate yourself about what is being proposed. We'll provide during those meetings a project update to you prior to the release of the actual draft environmental document. So if you haven't already signed up for our email blasts, please be sure to do that, and that will keep you connected with the project as the various notices go out for the meetings. Currently, we are looking to conduct these open house meetings in the spring of next year, of 2021. And the format of these upcoming meetings will be contingent upon what we are able to or allowed to do. What I mean is whether or not those will be in person or virtually. We're very fortunate to be able to offer this virtual format given our current environment. So one way or another, we want to make sure that this process continues and the public has full access to the information. All right, so in terms of our format for our meeting today, we have organized it into 2 parts. So first, you will hear a presentation from our project team, the individuals I introduced to you, where you will learn more about the statewide high-speed rail program, the history of this Los Angeles to Anaheim project section. You'll learn about our project schedule and the very important phase that we are in right now, which is to produce an environmental document for public review. Second, we'll move into receiving your formal comments on the scope of this project. So again, please note that the intent of today's meeting is to receive your formal scoping comments. Project staff cannot answer any questions regarding specific property impacts or other specific project impacts, as the analysis has not yet been completed. This is why we are here today, to announce the commencement of this process and to make sure you have an opportunity to input on the scope of it. The purpose of our public scoping period is to obtain your input about the scope of work being proposed and your input about the project itself. As I mentioned, our meeting today is scheduled from 5 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. It will be conducted first here in English and continue all the way to 7:30. And then secondly and separately, we'll be holding the same meeting in Spanish. Our meeting fully in English will continue through 7:30, and our meeting fully in Spanish will start at 6:30. And so, and it will also conclude at 7:30. A separate Spanish-speaking team will be conducting the Spanish meeting via a separate Zoom link and phone line. Both meetings will contain identical information. I'm making this announcement to make sure that you are informed and aware that this is happening, and that's the format of our meeting. I'll be making announcements about the Spanish presentation as we approach 6:30, which is their start time. And we will also include this information in the chat box in case anyone is interested. If you are interested in joining or switching over to the Spanish presentation at 6:30, you can visit our website, again, at meethsrsocal.org for the Zoom link, because of course it's a separate Zoom link. Or you can also call into that meeting and just listen to audio only, and I can give you that information now. The phone number for the Spanish meeting beginning at 6:30 is 669-900-6833. I also need to give you a meeting ID and a passcode for that on your phone keypad. The meeting ID is 997-7358. 3819. Again, the meeting ID is 997-7358-3819. Separately, there's also a passcode, and that number is 845301. Again, the passcode is 845301. And again, all of that is if you're interested in switching over to the Spanish meeting. Otherwise, sit tight and stay with us through 7:30. We'll be conducting this meeting fully here in Spanish. Excuse me, in English. Now I'm going to repeat that information in Spanish in case we have any Spanish only listeners online with us right now, and they may be interested in doing that. Para su información, esta reunión de alcance público se va a presentar completamente en español a las 6:30 a través de un link o número de teléfono distintos y con nuestro equipo de habla español. Yo voy a hacer anuncios sobre este llegando a las 6:30 e incluiremos esta información en el chat en su pantalla también. Visite el website para el link de Zoom o puede llamar para participar solamente por teléfono al número 669-900-6833. También tiene que apuntar un meeting ID y esos números son 997-7358-3819 y también un código que es 845301. Gracias. So we are also hosting a second virtual meeting identical to tonight's meeting this coming Saturday, September 12th. The time for that meeting is from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. This same identical program will be repeated in the same format. The meeting will start at 10 a.m. and then the Spanish in that case will begin separately at 11:30 p.m. a.m., both in the morning there. Both public meetings are being recorded and will be posted to the project website at the meethsrsocal.org website. This was also done with a recent telephone town hall that we held last week. Some of you may have joined that town hall meeting. Many of the people who participated in that phone call indicated that they would be participating in the virtual meeting today or Saturday. So welcome back if you are here with us today. But that is another example of the outreach that we are conducting to ensure that people are aware of the availability of the notice of preparation and notice of intent and the opportunity that you have to formally comment on them. To ensure a complete and accurate record of our meeting this evening and your public comments, we are having a court reporter document our entire meeting for the record to ensure completeness and accuracy. All right, so now some instructions for your online participation, or if you're on the phone, for your phone participation. You should know that in the past, our public scoping meetings would be held in multiple physical locations along our project corridor to make it very convenient and accessible for folks to participate in person. And we would set up the information in our meeting rooms visually and have staff talk to folks personally. While we are not able to have this in-person touch today because of our pandemic and limitations to in-person consultations for public agencies, we will still be conducting today's meeting in the same way as we would if we were in person. As we would in person, we will receive your comments and any questions, any clarifying or general questions after a formal presentation. Note again that the intent of today's meeting is to receive your formal scoping comments with a 3-minute limit, but the project team is happy to answer any general questions you may have about the program or any clarifying questions that you might have about the LA to Anaheim project specifically. Project staff cannot answer your questions regarding specific impacts as this analysis has not yet been completed. The purpose of our scoping period is to obtain your input about the scope of the work that is being proposed and your input about the project. This is what we are very interested in receiving today. This almost goes without saying, but I will state that I expect that all of our participants will be respectful during our meeting today. Any threatening or profane or other inappropriate language will not be tolerated. Disruptive participants will be removed from the meeting. I don't expect that that will be a problem, and we actually look forward to your comments during our time together today. You can see us now via camera to start the meeting, but we will be turning off the cameras during the presentation so that you can focus on the information on the slides that we'll be showing you. We'll turn the cameras back on during the public scoping, the comment period, so that you can see us listening to your questions, or to your comments, and we can interact that way. All right, in terms of your actually providing us a formal public comment, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. If you are online on the Zoom link, you probably are familiar with the raise your hand button. We will call upon you and unmute you in order for you to verbally share your scoping comment with us, and I'll help you do that. If you would like to speak, you open the attendees tab on your screen, click on the raise hand option next to your name. I will call on you when it's your turn to speak. As I mentioned, we will unmute your line. Please be respectful again. And if you're having any technical problems, please send us a message via the chat, or you can also email our staff who are standing by at this email address. That email address is support@meethsrsocal.org. Again, that email address is support@meethsrsocal.org. Now, for those of you who are on the telephone only, there is a way for you to raise your hand as well. You can raise your hand by pushing *9 on your telephone keypad. This will show up on our system here, and we will be taking your questions as well in order. I will call upon you via the last 4 digits of the phone number that I see on screen. We will unmute you, and in order for you to verbally provide us your comment. We do have the chat function on your screen, which many of you are accustomed to using. We would like you to use that just to ask us questions about how to get something or any information. Our staff is available and can answer those questions immediately. If you would rather not orally give us your public comment during our 3-minute period, you can write it into the chat function and we can read it for you. But honestly, we would prefer our audience to speak directly themselves. But again, if for some reason you are not able to orally provide us your comment, please use the chat box to indicate what your comment is, and we would be happy to read that for you. Again, as I mentioned, our speakers, you all will be called in order, whether you're participating online or through our phone list. Please note that it's our normal practice to allow any agency or other elected officials to be given an opportunity to speak first. So if we have any agency or elected officials online, please be sure to self-identify with your office name on the system, and we'll be able to call upon you. When your name or your phone number, 4 digits, is called, we request you to speak slowly and clearly state your first and last name. And if applicable, if you are representing an organization, please indicate that as well. We may need to ask you to repeat or spell your name to ensure that we have that accurately for our record. As I indicated, we are transcribing today's meeting, and that does need to be clearly stated. All of our comments from you will be limited to 3 minutes. There will be a timer on the screen that you'll see. I will ask you to wrap up your comments if I see that you're getting close. And we also welcome you to submit any additional comments that you may need additional time for, either via the mail or email, and I'll go through with you before we adjourn. I'll also indicate that if you would like to make an additional comment after making a preliminary comment, you're welcome to do that by raising your hand again on the screen. But I will like to get through all the speakers first before I come back to someone who's already provided us a comment. We should have plenty of time to get through everyone's comments, so we appreciate your patience with that. If it appears that we will be running out of time, which I don't think will be the case, but just in case, I may have to ask to limit your speaker time to 2 minutes, and I'll make this announcement during the meeting if we need to do that, which I don't think we'll need to, but just for you to know. Okay, enough of all the instructions. Hopefully all that was very clear. We have some additional information for you in our presentation, which it will really help you understand what is being proposed. So sit back and relax, and I would like to introduce, or rather, let me walk you through the first set of slides here, and then I'll introduce our first speaker. So what I'd like to do first is review the agenda with you. I mentioned this preliminarily. We'll have Ophelia start with reviewing our Connecting California High-Speed Rail program, a straight-red program. And then Diane will talk more specifically about the LA to Anaheim project section. Lena will talk specifically about the Colton and Lenwood components. And then Diane will come back to talk about our engagement process, our environmental process, specifically scoping, and how we encourage you to stay involved. So with that, I would like to ask, okay, there you go, Ophelia. This is you, take it from here.
Thank you, Hino. Okay, so like I said, I will be giving you a very high-level overview of our program. So the California High-Speed Rail program is divided into 2 phases, and currently our program is divided into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, and we're currently working on the phase 1, as you could see in the picture with the blue map, which is from San Francisco to LA Union Station. And then phase 2 is an extension of our project to phase 2, which goes to Sacramento in the north and to Anaheim to San Diego for Southern California. So our project will increase mobility across California, and it is a much needed alternative of transportation that we have. Other countries have had high-speed rail already, but we don't have, so this will be the first in the United States. And of course, it will provide a better air quality for all our people of California. And as we already have proven, it provides a lot of job growth, as we could attest with the project that we have right now currently in Central Valley. With the construction that we're having right now, we have an average of about 1,100 workers daily that's working our project in that very specific area of Central Valley. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, phase 1 is, like I said, it runs from San Francisco Transbay Terminal in the north and to the LA Union Station in the south. It's a total of about 520 miles. And right now, I mentioned that in between Fresno and Bakersfield, there's about 119 miles under construction with our 3 design build contract going on currently. That's pretty much the only section of our program that's been cleared that's going under construction. So part of our project of phase 1, the majority of the work that we're doing, which is including this section of LA to Anaheim, is to clear the environmental clearance to this remaining section of phases. So from San Francisco to San Jose, and then San Jose to Merced, and then in Southern California, we have the Bakersfield to Palmdale section, Palmdale to Burbank, Burbank to LA, and LA to Anaheim, this section that we're referring to now. So there's actually 8 remaining sections that we have to clear, and I'm happy to report that about a couple of hours ago, we just approved the ROD for one of our sections, which is the Y in the Central Valley. So as far as the draft environmental document, we have approved about 6 of those sections, to completed 2, and the remaining sections, of course, is this LA to Anaheim. Next slide, please. Okay, phase 2 is an extension to Northern California to Sacramento, and then in Southern California to San Diego. That's about 300 miles to complete this section of phase 2. And along the way, we will also be building about 24 stations and major stations such as the Transway Terminal that I mentioned, and the U.S. Union Station in LA, and then we have the Arctic Terminal already built in Anaheim. So in terms of speed, this is a high-speed rail, and I'm assuming a lot of you have traveled around the world and have experienced a high-speed rail ride, and that will be about 200 miles an hour ride is the average speed that we have in this system. And a good example is if you're traveling from San Francisco to Los Angeles, it will take you about 1 hour, 40 minutes. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Okay, in terms of funding, there's always this misconception that funding in Southern California doesn't exist. Well, that's not true. Just to let you know, we have invested about $4.4 billion in state funding dedicated to Southern California. We call this our early investment, or the bookends. If you are reading some of our documents, they refer to those words, either bookends or early investment. So as you can see on the screen, there's different sources of funding, and a lot of it is coming from our Prop 1A, of course. And just to highlight that about $1.3 billion of that 4.4 is coming from high-speed rail. And we are very much instrumental in closing the funding gap on many significant regional projects, some of which are already completed in Southern California. Next slide. There's about $363 million out of that 1.4 that's dedicated for environmental review work for shared corridor improvements that we're working with Metrolink, Lucent, and others. And this pretty much 363 is not just dedicated for this section of LA to A, but also cover the 4 sections of Southern California, Bakersfield to Palmdale, Palmdale to Burbank, Burbank to Los Angeles, and of course, your section of Los Angeles to Anaheim. I just want to highlight in the map that that yellow that you can see is the one that's going to our San Bernardino. There's 2 options that may be in our phase 2. As you could see, I guess there's a cursor in there. There's 2 options, whether it's going to Corona or to the other section that's not finalized yet, in order to go to San Diego. So those are some of the proposal that may be the one that we will be planning on doing when we get to phase 2 at a later date. Next slide, please. So environmental process, this scoping is part of our environmental process, of course. So the good news is that last year we have our delegated of authority by the Federal Railroad Administration for us to be the lead for NEPA, which is something that we are doing right now. So as a NEPA lead and also as a CEQA lead already, completing both the CEQA and the NEPA processes will allow the authority to invest new future federal, state, or private funds if made available for us to complete our phase 1 section. So with that, very high-level overview of our program, I would like to turn over into more detail regarding this section to our project manager, Diane Ricard.
Hi, everyone. Hi again. I'm assuming that you can all hear me. So the original scope for the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section is approximately 30 miles, and we are environmentally clearing 4 stations. So it starts at Union Station and ends at Arctic in Anaheim. And we will be environmentally clearing a station at Norwalk and Santa Fe Springs and at the Fullerton Transportation Center. We have 2 alternatives under study. So the high-speed rail project alternative, which you see on the map on the screen, and the no project alternative. There will be 4 mainline tracks, with 2 of them being electrified, and it will run along the existing railroad alignment. We are environmentally clearing grade separations, which will improve the operational characteristics for both passenger and freight services, improve safety, and reduce emissions and congestion. So this is a slide that explains what a grade separation is. A grade separation actually separates the roadway from the railroad tracks by either elevating the railroad tracks above the roadway or elevating the roadway above the railroad tracks. And some of the benefits of the grade separation are that it improves safety by eliminating conflicts between trains and vehicles and pedestrians and autos. Pedestrians and bicyclists. It reduces noise because trains don't have to sound their horns when they're crossing the intersection, and the gates don't have to go down for the trains, so you don't hear the gate bells either. Decreases traffic congestion because traffic is no longer waiting for the train to cross the intersection, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions because autos are no longer waiting at the intersections for the train, and it improves the train's operational reliability. So the passenger rail component of this Los Angeles to Anaheim section, the high-speed rail environmental document analyzes improvements at crossings throughout the Los Angeles to Anaheim corridor. Grade separations will be advanced in coordination with the local jurisdictions and potentially completed on schedules independent from other rail improvements. We are environmentally clearing 11 proposed new grade separations, modifying 23 existing grade separations. There will be 2 intersections that remain at grade, and there'll be 2 crossing closures. So the Los Angeles to Anaheim high-speed rail is going to share the existing rail corridor between Los Angeles and Anaheim. And important to note is that BNSF owns the railroad right-of-way between Los Angeles and Fullerton. BNSF has been a supportive partner to passenger rail by allowing passenger rail service to operate on its right-of-way through a shared use agreement. So to accommodate the growth in passenger rail service going forward, it will be necessary to relocate a portion of the BNSF freight rail service from Los Angeles to Anaheim corridor east to San Bernardino County. The BNSF Colton Intermodal facility will accommodate freight trains that cannot be handled in the corridor due to increased passenger rail service. And the pointer is showing you where approximately Colton is located on the map. And the BNSF Lenwood staging tracks, which will be used for staging freight trains during and after high-speed rail construction. And the pointer is showing you where in the Barstow area the Lenwood component would be located. So in order for all of this to happen, the High-Speed Rail Authority and BNSF entered into an agreement called a Memorandum of Understanding in March of last year, which outlines the roles and responsibilities of both BNSF and the High-Speed Rail Authority. So the high-speed rail responsibilities are that we will serve as the environmental lead agency for both the California environmental process and the federal environmental process to clear the BNSF Colton Intermodal facility and the Lenwood staging tracks in the high-speed rail Los Angeles to Anaheim section draft EIRS as essential components of the project. So we refer to the Los Angeles to Anaheim corridor along with the Colton and Lenwood components collectively as the project for purposes of environmental clearance. BNSF's responsibilities in this, if we could go back please. BNSF's responsibilities in this are to provide the information and the studies to support the environmental clearance process and to participate in meetings and coordination to support high-speed rail in this clearance process. So this just talks a little bit about environmental scoping. So scoping is the term that is used in both CEQA and NEPA to define the actions for determining the scope of issues to address during the environmental analysis of a proposed project. The process involves the engagement and re-engagement of the surrounding community on identifying potentially significant issues and concerns of public importance related to the additional project components. The specific reason that we are conducting this scoping right now is to inform the public of the Colton and Lenwood project components. Comments received will be considered in the development of the draft EIR-EIS for the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section. So with that, Lena Kent is going to talk to you about the Colton and Lenwood components.
All right, thank you, Diane. And as Diane had mentioned, BNSF does have a long history with working with agencies across California as well as across the nation to increase passenger service, and we've worked really hard to try to accommodate that where possible. One thing that we do really stress is that it can't negatively impact our freight customers. I mean, we have customers across the country that depend on services being delivered in a timely manner, and many of those goods that we all depend on day to day in our day-to-day lives. So it's really important that we don't negatively impact those freight customers. So because freight trains would not be able to operate or be accommodated in the corridor due to increased passenger service, a new facility would need to be built to accommodate those trains. And the former Cal Portland cement site was identified as a location. And for those of you that live in the Inland Empire, many of you are familiar with this particular site. It was a cement company that originated or started business in the late 1800s, I believe 1890, before it eventually ceased their cement production plant in about a decade ago. And when that plant closed, it took a number of jobs from the Inland Empire. And so this particular project, of course, would bring some very well-paying jobs back to the region. So again, it's located on the former Cal Portland site. It will move freight to and from destinations more efficiently. I think one question that a lot of people in the community have is, what type of equipment would go into that facility? Well, because it's a vacant site and we're able to build it from the ground up, we're proposing to put in some electric cargo handling equipment. And that could be electric wide-span cranes. It could be electric hostlers that move containers in and around the facilities, or electric straddle carriers. And again, the economic benefits to the region, it will bring well-paying jobs back to that community, contributing in a positive way to the local and regional economy. You can move on to the next slide. And as Diane had mentioned in one of the previous slides, she explained grade separations. And there are a number of grade separations that would be planned in conjunction with the project there in Colton. And the new proposed grade separations would be Rancho Avenue, La Cadena Drive South, Fogg Street, La Cadena Drive South, Agua Monza Road. And then in addition to the new grade separations, there would be some modified to some existing grade separations. One would be Fogg Street, In Street, La Cadena Drive North, and Vivienda Avenue, as well as a proposed bridge crossing over the Santa Ana River. I think what's really important to note on this particular slide with these proposed grade separations or modifying existing grade separations is that you eliminate the conflict between trains and cars. I know from, living here in the Inland Empire and working close to Colton, the city of Colton and the residents there worked really hard to establish a quiet zone. And certainly eliminating the grade crossing or not building an at-grade crossing is certainly a benefit in that we would not be blowing the train whistle at those particular crossings. Next slide, please. So in addition to the Colton project, there would also is a need for staging tracks. And staging tracks would be built in Lenwood, and that is just west of our Barstow facility. And essentially what that would do is we would hold trains at those staging tracks that are waiting to enter into the Los Angeles to Anaheim corridor. And they would be held there during construction, as well as when high-speed rail is doing maintenance on the actual track itself. So instead of bringing them down into the basin and they're holding in different parts of the cities, we would hold them up in the Barstow area as they're waiting to come down into the corridor. And again, that also provides some economic benefits to the city and the community in the high desert as well, with additional jobs and tax revenue. Next slide, please. So a part of the Lenwood staging tracks, it's also been discussed new grade separation at Hinckley Road. So again, avoiding that conflict with trains and vehicle traffic, as well as a proposed bridge crossing at Lenwood Creek. I'll hand that back over to the other panelists.
Thank you. So now we're going to talk about stakeholder engagement a little bit. The overall outreach efforts and activities that have been conducted in this corridor. There certainly has been more in Los Angeles to Anaheim because the main segment study has been going on for a while, but we've conducted legislative briefings, and this includes to the Colton and Lenwood area, stakeholder working group meetings or outreach to stakeholders, stakeholder briefings and calls. Today is an open house meeting, and there will be open house meetings in the future. Hopefully, sometime in the future, we'll be able to do traditional open house meetings, but for the time being, it's going to be virtually like it is tonight. We had a telephone town hall last week that some of you participated in, and the upcoming outreach opportunities include office hours that you can contact us to schedule if you want some specific information. Can we go back, please? I don't know that I finished that one. We're doing the scoping meetings right now and then open houses prior to the release of the draft EIR-EIS. Thank you. So now a little bit about the environmental process. The original scope was the main passenger rail corridor from Los Angeles to Anaheim, and this is the summary of the previous environmental process efforts. So scoping for the main corridor was initiated in March of 2007 to identify the range of alternatives being considered for the purposes of environmental evaluation and environmental effects to be analyzed in the draft EIR-EIS. The High-Speed Rail Authority developed additional route concepts and completed preliminary alternatives analysis in 2001 and supplemental alternatives analysis in 2010 and 2016, which included to build alternatives. And after identifying greater negative impacts to sensitive environmental resources and higher capital costs, one alternative was advanced for the draft environmental impact report and environmental impact statement, which is the build alternative that you saw on the screen earlier in this presentation. The staff recommended preliminary preferred alternative was selected by the High-Speed Rail Authority Board in the fall of 2018. This is just a pictorial representation of the steps that we've been through. So on the top, I've described all of that. We are currently back in scoping because of the Colton and Lenwood components being added to this study. And ultimately, we'll collect your comments during this process. We will consider them in the development of the draft EIR and EIS. We will hold public comment meetings and public hearing upon release of the draft EIR EIS. We will then incorporate public and agency comments, address them, incorporate them, and this will culminate in final approvals leading to the record of decision and notice of determination. Throughout this process, the authority has worked along the principles of avoiding adverse impacts, minimizing impacts where they cannot be avoided, and mitigating impacts when they cannot be avoided or minimized. And this is all in the process of being studied. What you see on the screen, and I'm not going to read the whole slide, is the numerous resource areas that we are studying in this environmental document to determine what the impacts are and where mitigation is necessary if we can't avoid or minimize. So just to name a few that people are typically interested in, although they're all very important: environmental justice, hazardous materials and waste, air quality and global climate change, parks, recreation and open space, and station planning, land use and development, and transportation. So the scoping comment process, we are in the scoping period right now. It's a 30-day calendar period which began on August 25th and will end on September 24th. Comments submitted during the scoping period, including at this meeting tonight, will be considered in the development of the draft EIR EIS. The High-Speed Rail Authority has a website that has information on the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section, which you can see on the screen, www.hsr.ca.gov. You'll have another opportunity to submit comments verbally on September 12th from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. during the second virtual public scoping meeting. There is a form on the authority's website where you can submit comments. The email address is shown here where you can submit your comments via email during the scoping period. You can submit by traditional U.S. mail to the address shown on the screen, and this is also shown on our website. And we also have a toll-free number, which is shown here, where you can leave a voicemail message, and during the scoping period, that will be considered a scoping comment. All scoping comments must be received electronically or postmarked on or before September 24th. So we talked about the virtual public scoping meetings. There is an English presentation this evening and on Saturday, as well as a Spanish presentation. We also have a project-specific website, which you see there, called meethrssocal.org. And on that website, you will see some videos that talk about how to submit a comment and talk about some of the project details that we spoke about this evening. So there's more information on that website, a project fact sheet, and I think that this presentation is also going to be posted on that project website. Next slide, please. This is a high-level overview of the schedule. So currently we're in the scoping and public meetings. In the spring of 2021, prior to the release of the draft EIR EIS, we will hold open house meetings, and they will be virtual if the pandemic is still a concern about public gatherings. But if the concern about public gatherings has dissipated, then we will hold traditional meetings in person. And that will be in the spring of 2021. We anticipate releasing the draft environmental impact report and the draft environmental impact statement in the spring of 2021, which will be followed by open house meetings during the comment period and scoping meetings, public hearings. And during the public hearing, we will receive public comments on the draft EIR EIS, and there'll be a formal public comment period. with the goal of reaching the record of decision and notice of determination by the summer of 2022. So, go ahead. I thought I heard someone.
Not at all. Diane, I think that
That was
concluded
the final
our
one?
formal presentation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you to all of our speakers to walk us through the information about the program. We hope that was informative for you to, again, understand the scope of the project that is being proposed and to prepare you for providing us your comments today. So what I would like to do now is move into our comment period. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we are recording and transcribing today's meeting for our formal record. We do see that we have a few comments that have already come through our stat chat and one individual with their hand raised. So I will start with the folks with their hands who are raised. And then if allowed, I will go ahead and speak for those of you who submitted any comments via chat and include those for the record. Again, any questions that might be coming through, our panelists may not be able to answer them specifically. I will state it for the record and allow them to give you whatever information is possible at this stage of the process. We do have one individual representing one of our elected representatives, so I will start with him. It is a question that came through our chat function. From representing oh, and I see representing our chairman, Kurt Hagman for the County of San Bernardino is Chad Schnicker. And I also see, I believe that you had your hand raised. So please continue to raise your hand, Chad, if you so wish to speak orally, but I will go ahead and ask your questions. Oh, okay, I do see your hand raised now, Chad. Would you like to go ahead? We'll need for you to unmute. There you go.
I was just going to ask the question that I put in there. I mean, the obvious concern for this area is not just primarily it's a traffic impact, but secondarily, and not a distant second. This is an extremely economically impacted area, County of San Bernardino. So there are certainly a lot of concerns about essentially average of 10 trucks or 10 trains per day, unloading 300, getting to nearly 3,000 additional trucks on the road. In an area where all of us that are from the Inland Empire know is already massively congested. So that is just a concern, and maybe this isn't requesting feedback on. Just it hasn't quite been made apparent what efforts are going to be taken to prevent the obvious possible problems.
Thank you, Chad. And if it's okay with you, what I'd like to do is repeat what you wrote in our staff chat, only because the audio was a little sketchy when you just spoke your comment. So I believe you also wrote it down. So I'd like to go ahead and speak that for you for the record so we make sure that we have that accurately. Your comment was the Colton Intermodal facility will lead to nearly 3,000 additional trucks on the road at an already impacted part of local freeways in one of the most socially and economically impacted areas in the Inland Empire. You do have a question here, which is what mitigations will be made to these communities? I'll indicate and allow Diane for you to answer that if you'd like, that the analysis is still being undertaken, and the note is definitely noted for the record, but I'm not sure if there's any mitigations that are currently known, but understand that the supervisor's office is interested in that for the record. Diane, would you want to comment in any way?
Yes, so thank you for that question. This is the purpose of this meetings, the scoping period. Analysis is currently underway, and we want comments so we can consider it when we're doing the studies. And as part of the EIR-EIS study process, if you remember that slide about avoid, minimize, mitigate, we will be determining when mitigation is necessary due to impacts that cannot be avoided or minimized. So that is underway. And if Lena, is there anything that you want to add?
No, I think you handled it, Diane. I mean, obviously, it is going to be analyzed in the draft DIR, and until we have that study back, it'd be difficult to comment on that. But I mean, certainly that will be looked at and then mitigated based on the impacts that show up on the study.
Thank you.
And for our speakers, if you like to share your camera or start your video while you're answering your questions or during our scoping comments, that will help our audience see you listening to their comment or speaking. So Ophelia or Lena and Diana, if you can start video, that will be helpful. So I would like to go to our next individual who has raised their hand, which is Jillian Wong. You are now being called, Jillian, and if you can please restate your name, any affiliation for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jillian Wong. I am a planning and rules manager with the South Coast AQMD. Thank you for the opportunity to comment this evening. The South Coast AQMD is concerned about the proposed project for the following reasons. The proposed BNSF Colton rail yard is proposing an average of 10 trains per day, which can represent nearly 4,000 truck trips per day, depending on the number of containers per train. This proposed BNSF Colton rail yard is nearly double the acreage of the BNSF San Bernardino rail yard. The proposed BNSF Colton rail yard is located in an environmental justice area, with the surrounding land uses being in the worst 95th percentile in the state for disadvantaged communities pursuant to Cal EnviroScreen. The BNSF Colton and Lenwood portions of this project is obtaining environmental clearance under the guise of the high-speed rail project, which will use an all-electric passenger train. South Coast AQMD staff wants to ensure that the draft EIR-EIS identify the appropriate baseline to ensure that it is not misleading or uninformative. The draft EIR-EIS must analyze the air quality, traffic, and health risk impacts associated with the construction, operation of, and any growth that occurs and is associated with the proposed Colton rail yard, separate from any analysis of the high-speed rail system. The draft EIR-EIS must also analyze all of the short and long-term environmental impacts associated with the construction and operation of the Colton rail yard, independently of the high-speed rail portion of the project, in the possible event that the high-speed rail is delayed or never materializes due to a lack of funding. The draft EIR-EIS must analyze the regional and localized air quality impacts and health risks, particularly from diesel particulate matter, which is a carcinogen, from all construction and operational aspects of the freight rail yard component, including the main line where locomotives will be traveling to the Colton and Hobart rail yards. The draft EIR-EIS must include all feasible mitigation measures to reduce regional and local air quality impacts from construction equipment, on-road trucks, cargo handling equipment, line haul locomotives, and switch locomotives. In addition to the LA to Anaheim section, the Palmdale to LA section, and the Burbank to LA section are also located in South Coast AQMD's jurisdiction. Each of these 3 project sections will need to demonstrate that it meets general conformity requirements. Lastly, the High-Speed Rail Authority and BNSF have the unique opportunity to build a near-zero or zero-emission rail yard that will minimize air quality impacts to the surrounding community that is already heavily impacted. We will be submitting formal written comments. Thank you.
Excellent, Jillian. Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate that. Next, I would like to go to Ham Montes from the city of Colton. I believe it's a planning commissioner with District 5. I will go ahead and speak it appears to be a clarifying question about outreach. The question is, has outreach been extended to Native tribe liaisons and other indigenous communities? Diane, if you would like to take that question, outreach included all affected parties, including indigenous and other tribe liaisons. Do you want to take that or clarify that that was the outreach?
We have started that process. I know that representatives were invited to the agency scoping meeting yesterday. Harry or Tyler, is there anything that you want to add to that you're aware of?
Yeah, the authority has ongoing coordination with the various tribes along, throughout the program. So yes, we have been coordinating with these various tribes through the years on this project section, and into the future. That is typically done in a little bit different fashion than straight in the public involvement process, but it certainly has been ongoing. I don't know much more to clarify than that, but it certainly is happening.
I encourage, thank you, Harry. I encourage you, if there are specific tribes that you're concerned about, to get your comment into the record either tonight or before the end of the scoping period, just in case we miss somebody.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Diane and Harry. Next, I see another hand raised from Pamela Colton. Following Pamela, I'm going to be calling on Dr. G. Gonzalez. I also see a hand raised there. I will try to give you a heads up so that you know I'll be calling on you. We are also monitoring any comments coming through our chat. I would encourage you to indicate if you're talking to us through the chat function to please put it in form of a comment so that we can read your comment for you. We will offer the questions to the panelists as they can be answered. Just a reminder, the panelists are not able to answer specific questions relating to properties, other specific impacts, but we'll get through these as best we can today for your benefit. Okay, so Pamela, I'm gonna call on you next. Please state your name again and any affiliation for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Pam, and I am a Colton resident and live here in the area where this is going to take place. And I just had a couple of questions.
Can I interrupt you, Pam? Can you please state your first full name and last name for the record?
Pamela Lemos, Lemos.
Thank you very much. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I noticed on the map, and I know they talked about that the La Cadena South is going to also connect or kind of go over the Vivienda area. I was curious if that will also impact Barton Road, where La Cadena crosses over to Barton Road, if that's going to be affected by this particular project.
Thank you. Lena, is that a question that you can answer, or Diane, how would you like to respond?
Lena, is that something you can respond to?
Well, that would be studied as part of the draft and, the traffic analysis. So that wouldn't be something that I would be able to give you a definite answer on tonight, but it certainly would be studied as part of the traffic analysis and would go into the draft DIR.
Excellent. Thank you, Lena. We definitely have noted that for the record. Thank you, Pam, for your question.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Next, I'm going to Dr. G. Gonzalez. Dr. G, you're next. Go right ahead. Please state your full name, any affiliation for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
How do I do this? Can you hear me?
We sure can. Go right ahead.
Well, good. I'm not very good at this machine, but
so far so good. Go right ahead.
My name is Dr. G. Most everybody, everybody in Colton knows me. I'm a council. Lena knows me, and Diane knows me. Council member in the city of Colton. I have 2 questions based on this presentation tonight. One, and they're related. One is there was a list of environmental topics that were out there. I'm assuming those will all be part of the draft and presented in 2021 when the draft comes out. Is that correct?
Yeah,
that is correct.
Okay, then question number 2, how set in stone is that draft or malleable? Because as I'm understanding, I'm hearing the dialogue here now, a lot of the impacts are not known. And I understand that, but my residents don't know what the impacts are. And I guess what comes to my head is, the impacts on housing, the impacts on the wall, the grade separation. So if the first time they get that information is during the draft, how changeable is that draft, or is it changeable, or is it etched in stone? And is it just information gathering on that time, or questions? But I mean, is it changeable if there's some really serious concerns?
The purpose of the environmental process and to release a draft DIR EIS is so that the public and officials may comment on it, and we will take all comments and we will consider them, and some things will be changed based on the public comments that we receive. In addition, we will be communicating with officials and the public throughout the process. So there is opportunity for things to change based on comments. Tyler, is there anything that you want to add to this?
No, I think you hit on most of it there. So really the scoping now is to understand what topics we should be looking at. Maybe I'll start my video here. Scoping now is to understand what topics we should be looking at as part of the document, and then we'll have the full detail on the impacts and the mitigation as was discussed earlier as part of the project in our draft environmental document. That is intended for the public to comment on. And like Diane said, the authority will respond and change items as needed for the final environmental document. And that's really the final action for the project for the approval of the environmental document.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tyler and Diane. Next, I'm going to be reading a couple of a comment for the record. And then we have a couple of, it looks like, clarifying questions. So let me read the comment first. So from Clyde Williams, his comment is, for vibration and noise mitigation, include vibration reduction pads between track and ties and between ties and underlying concrete base. That's one comment. He also states, include plastic coated rail tie down clip/clasp for the rail/tie connectors. Provide rail/wheel sound absorbing mini walls 3 feet high for all sections with curvature of less than 1,000 foot radius, and for within 200 feet either side of rail/track switching system. Third comment, provide SCAG 2020 to 2045 transportation analysis zones, or TAZ, including for all TAZs entered or passed through by segment. Include population, households, and employment, and provide estimates of ethnicity and income and wealth assets of these populations. Also provide estimates for the TAZs for service populations in each TAZ, including commuters and office hour workers. Fourth comment from Clyde Williams. Provide compensatory measures to eliminate any remaining impacts. Zero net impact, not just no significant impacts. Clyde, thank you very much for your comments. They have been received for our record. A couple of questions. I'm going to be reading a question from Mr. Robert Frampton, and I will allow the panel to determine if you can answer the question at this point. At a minimum, we are recording this for the record that this is something that is of interest from Robert Frampton. The question is, and there are two, is the intent to take traffic off the BNSF railroad through Fullerton to take it instead by truck from the ports of LA and Long Beach to Colton, is the question. So let me repeat that. Is the intent to take traffic off the BNSF railroad through Fullerton to take it instead by truck from the ports of LA and Long Beach to Colton? Diane?
Lena, is that something you'd like to tackle, respond to?
Sure, and possibly, I did see that Mr. Frampton had asked additional question on the Southern California International Gateway, so perhaps I can combine those two.
Take those together.
And answer both of those. So the Southern California International Gateway is a separate project, and that project was needed to handle international volumes coming out of the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. The Colton Intermodal facility is a separate facility that would handle domestic traffic. And the whole intent of the Colton facility is to take traffic off of the corridor between Los Angeles and Anaheim in order to accommodate additional passenger service. So the Southern California International Gateway would not be an ideal spot to handle trains that would be handled at the Colton facility given its location. So the intent is not to take trucks or to take traffic and truck it from the Port of Los Angeles to Colton. Right now, traffic at the ports is either loaded onto rail, onto a rail car and taken directly through the Alameda corridor and out of the region through Los Angeles, Anaheim, Riverside, Corona, Colton, San Bernardino, and on up Cajon Pass. And then it also could go to local warehouses and then be redistributed and come back to a rail car at a different time. But the intent is not to truck traffic from the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach to Colton.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that, Lena. In fact, that was a set of questions that I think help define what the scope that we're proposing here. So thank you for clarifying. A couple other clarifying questions that have come in through our chat from Chanel Morelos. The question is, at what point will public utilities be contacted? Should their utilities be directly impacted? So again, another good question just to clarify for the public. Again, the question is, at what point will public utilities be contacted? Should their utilities be directly impacted? Diane?
Tyler, is that one you can answer?
I think so. There's probably some contact that'll happen during the design process, but I think for the most part, it's more once the draft environmental document is released, we'll have a better idea of the infrastructure effects of the project, and that is often how we launch that process.
Can you clarify, Tyler, when you say during the design process, do you mean before the draft document is released in the spring of 2021?
In some cases, I think it's more likely that it would be when it's released.
Very good. So to clarify for our commenter, or the person asking the question, it was likely that that contact would happen after the draft document is released. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The next, we have another clarifying question from Brian Yaniti, that's spelled Y-A-N-I-T-Y. The question is the California High-Speed Rail Authority the lead agency for environmental review for the Fullerton Junction interlocking project? And is the Fullerton project in the scope of this Los Angeles to Anaheim environmental impact report? Again, let me repeat the question. Is the High-Speed Rail Authority the lead agency for the environmental review of the Fullerton Junction interlocking project? And is the Fullerton project in the scope of this LA to A environmental impact report?
Tyler?
I'll say this, there is improvements proposed at Fullerton Junction as part of the high-speed rail project. I think there's a little bit of a phasing question there of if some of that Fullerton Junction work would be earlier than high-speed rail, in which case it might be from a separate project. So I guess what I can say is that there are improvements proposed at Fullerton Junction as part of this project.
Very good. Thank you for clarifying that. We currently, I do not see any additional comments coming through our staff chat function, or I don't see any additional hands raised at the moment. Time check for now, we are at 6:19. So let me take this opportunity to just remind our audience that we will be continuing or commencing this meeting completely in Spanish at 6:30 p.m., which is in about 10 minutes. The program is identical, and a separate Zoom link and phone number has been made available for those who might be interested in participating in our Spanish meeting, completely done by our Spanish-speaking team, and questions and answers and comments are more than welcome received in the Spanish language. Let me give you those phone numbers again in case someone here is interested in switching over to our Spanish meeting. You can do so by calling 669-900-6833. The meeting ID for that phone meeting is 997-7358-3819, and the passcode is 845301. Allow me to repeat that in Spanish. Si ustedes prefieren escuchar esta presentación y proveernos sus comentarios en español, vamos a empezar nuestra reunión en español a las 6:30 en 10 minutos. Si quiere participar así, por favor llame al número 669-900-6833 y tiene que apuntar el meeting ID, que es 997-7358-3819, y también con el código, los números 845301. Gracias. Once again, I don't see that we have any additional individuals or offices requesting to submit a formal comment at this moment. So what I would like to do for those of you who are still participating and watching online is share with you how to visit our project website, where you can receive additional information and also provide us your formal comment that way, as long as it is received by Thursday, September 24th. So let me do that now. So here you can see our specific project website. As I was mentioning earlier, you can see it in the address line here, meethsrsocal.org. If you enter that into your browser, you'll come to our homepage here at the Meet HSR SoCal website. When you first arrive on the screen, and let me just do that again really fast. When you first arrive on the screen, you actually have the choice between the Los Angeles and Anaheim specific website, and also separately the Burbank to Los Angeles website. The Burbank to Los Angeles project section, for your information, has already released its draft environmental document, so there is quite a bit more information on that website. You might also want to take a look at that to see the type of information that will be forthcoming next spring of 2021 for the LA to Anaheim section. But if you go into our LA to Anaheim project specific website, this is our homepage here, which gives you a snapshot of the information that we presented to you today. It talks about the notice of preparation and the notice intent documents. As I mentioned, those are the two documents that officially provide the public with the proposed project, specifically its purpose, its need, the alternatives, and they are available here on the website in the various languages that I've mentioned. Here on the left is the notice of intent in English. That document is 5 pages, and then you can also visit or rather click on the English of the notice of preparation. That is 11 pages. You can scroll through. It's a pretty direct, straightforward read and a very good description of the project, including on the NOP, if you go down, a snapshot of the project map as was presented here, and the specific close-up as you can see there. It is a very useful read. We really do encourage you to take a look and understand the full context and scope of the project that's being proposed, and use it to help you comment on the project, again, by our deadline of Thursday, September 24th. If you go back to our homepage on the website and scroll further down, there's additional links that you can quickly access to receive the full information about the project as we have it available. The website itself is organized as an open house. I will come back to this to visit that a little bit more closely for you because we do have one other comment coming through. But just very quickly here on the home page here at this link here is where you can submit a comment. If you click on that, you can see a couple of instruction and videos how to do that in English and in Spanish here. And then you can choose the form in the appropriate language that you would like to submit your comments. So as I mentioned, the NOP and NOI are available in English and those 5 languages, and the comment forms are as well. So let's say, for example, you wanted to comment in Tagalog, the form will come up in Tagalog and you would enter all that information accordingly. We are trying to make this as accessible for everyone as much as possible. So please, if this information isn't directly relevant to you, if you know others who would benefit from knowing about the project and are either English speaking or of these other languages, we definitely encourage you to visit the website and participate, submit your formal comment by Thursday, September 24th. I'm going to come back to our presentation and go ahead and read an additional comment or question that I received from Brian Tanidi, who I think also provided us a question earlier. The question that is received is, the brochure I received in the mail on this Los Angeles to Anaheim scoping described the proposed BNSF Colton Intermodal Yard as an all-electric facility. Does this mean there will be electric locomotives used? Diane, I think Lena might be the one to answer this question.
Yes.
Go right ahead, Lena.
And unmute myself there. So again, you know, an air analysis would be done, and the types of equipment that would go into the facility would be looked at during and studied during the draft environmental impact report.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I do not see any other hands raised or comments coming through. So we are now a couple of minutes away from our Spanish meeting commencing. We're at 6:27 right now, so just as a reminder, we're going to encourage folks to jump off to that if you'd like to, and we will continue here for our English session until 7:30 this evening. So we do encourage those of you who are online to please consider making a formal comment. If you are not ready today, that is what we're hoping is that you've learned a little bit more about the program, the project specifically being proposed, the Inland Empire components of it, and learned a little bit more from the questions and the comments that have been given so far. It's very important for the authority and our BNSF partner to ensure that those who are affected by the project are aware of it and have access to the information. This scoping process is specifically designed by both state and federal law to give the public an opportunity to indicate to the owners of the project what they feel should be considered in its analysis. So that is why we call it scoping. What is the scope of work that the owner should do in conducting the environmental analysis? Given that these types of programs have been done many times over the years, meaning environmental documents, those various chapters that we showed you earlier are the ones that are very much of interest to the public and that the team already knows needs to be included in the environmental document. So they are experienced in conducting the analyses across all these various topics. And have the methodologies in place so that a thorough review of existing information and analysis is completed so that the public is fully informed about the potential impacts associated with this project. The environmental documents, if you all have not already reviewed a document like this for other projects, are quite large. The data is significant. But the team does a very good job of presenting that information in an executive summary format that is very legible, easy to understand, and collapses all the information into a shorter form. But the full volume of the draft environmental report and draft environmental statement is available online once it comes out in the spring of 2021. And we do encourage our agencies, our organizations, businesses, property owners to really review that, especially the maps and other information that helps you understand how the project may be affecting you locally. So today's meeting again is to raise awareness and to encourage you to give the authority and our BNSF partners information about what you're interested in and what your concerns are, areas of study that should be included that may not already be on this list. Again, given the experience of the team and projects like this that have completed environmental study over the years, these are the topics that are generally required and then some to be studied so that a program as significant as this is a large program like this, that all aspects of environmental impact are considered. So we take this process very seriously. The authority and our partner BNSF is very much proactively seeking your involvement with the scope of this effort and how you believe this should be studied so that you can see that information produced next year when the actual draft document becomes available for your review. We are at 6:30, so I believe our Spanish colleagues are beginning their meeting now. I do see one other comment coming in from our staff chat, so I will go ahead and read that now. Pam, who was the same commenter earlier, your last name began with the letter L. I know we have it for the record, but I will go ahead and read your comment, and thank you for submitting it for the record. Her comment is, thank you for the opportunity to listen in and be aware of what's occurring in our community. Thank you to the Colton City Councilman, Dr. G, for looking out for us and representing your constituents. Thank you, Pam, very much for logging that comment. We also have another comment coming in from the Colton Joint Unified School District. So I will go ahead and read that comment for the record. And I believe we also have a hand raised. So I'll go first to our representative from the Colton Joint Unified School District, and that's Owen Chang. I'll go ahead and read your comment, Owen, for the record. Owen Chang, that's spelled O-W-E-N, last name is C-H-A-N-G, with the Colton Joint Unified School District. He indicates, we have several school and administrative support sites surrounding the project area, including a preschool at the intersection of Agua Mansa and Rancho. Has there been any preliminary discussions on the air quality impacts of the proposed project and how that may be addressed? I think that's an excellent question. I know that's part of the methodology and the scope of the environmental document, but Diane, I'll go ahead and allow you to respond and or ask Tyler to respond.
Yes, so air quality is one of the many resource areas or impacts that will be studied in this project. So yes, air quality will be studied in the project area. Is there anything that you want to add, Lena?
I think you covered it, Diane.
Okay.
Air quality is definitely, as you can see on screen, in this case, it's at the top of the list because the list is in alphabetical order, but is definitely a popular, important topic that is included for these environmental documents. So thank you for confirming that this will be looked at. I do see it.
I would say though, just to add one comment to that, I would say that, we understand your concerns, and it is something that we also take very seriously at BNSF, and I know the authority also takes it very seriously, and it will be analyzed in the draft EIR. And that is why we've already committed to looking at some electric components at this facility, such as the wide span electric cranes or the electric hostlers that we've been testing out at some of our other locations. So we understand your concerns, and we certainly take that to heart and take it very seriously.
Excellent. Thank you, Lena. I would like to go to our next participant who has her hand raised. Geraldine Natz, I recognize you have your hand raised on our screen. Please unmute and you can go right ahead. Make sure you state any affiliation, and if you could spell your name for the record, please. Be sure to unmute yourself from your Zoom screen.
I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. That must have been a mistake.
Oh, not at all. Well, we know that you're listening and that you're there.
Right.
So thank you for confirming.
Yeah.
No problem whatsoever.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I do see another hand raised. Let's see if this is for real. Dr. G, I think you've commented before. I recognize that you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely. Go.
Okay, thank you. Hey, listening to all this information going out, I think I'm interested in setting up like an outreach booth in South Colton to get the word out a little bit. Are there like a good informative flyer available that I could get from maybe Lena or somebody, maybe several hundred of them to give to the residents out in South Colton?
I think I can speak on behalf of the team. Absolutely. I know we have your contact information. If you can at least make sure our staff can follow up with you. Is that true?
I know Lena, so
okay,
she
very
can
good.
kind of help facilitate that. But I'm thinking like a couple hundred, because I could stand in front of Sombrero Market where a bunch of people come and they all know me, and they'd probably ask what's going on. If you have like a big poster or something, I would love to put that up there for the next week.
Absolutely. And if you haven't noticed already, we do have banners up in the community, so we can point those out to folks as well. But Lena will absolutely coordinate, if you don't have those materials already, to make sure you have what you need to share with Dr. G. Thank you so much for doing that. It's important not just for the owners of the project to obviously disseminate this information, which we do in multiple ways, including these banners in the community, direct mail, electronic mail, websites, social media, but for stakeholders such as you, Dr. J, to help us with communicating to your networks of folks and where in the community you know people might be interested in picking up information. So thank you very much.
Hey, I appreciate all that. And as Lena knows and Diane knows, I made comments about outreach to the people, and a lot of my folks aren't computer literate, you know.
Yes.
And I was really concerned, and it really gets to me not being able to do the in-person things. And so it's real hard, but they all know me. And I was thinking it might be helpful if I just plant myself in South Colton in front of Sombrero Market. I think we can cover a lot of ground that way.
Thank you so much. That absolutely would be helpful with the familiar, friendly face. So we appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. G.
Thank you.
I think we are current with those of you who have raised hands or submitted any comments via our chat. We do have, just a time check, we're at 6:38, so we do have a bit of time before we fully adjourn our meeting today at 7:30. So if you allow me, for those of you who are on screen, I will continue to share with you and walk you through our project website, where we have lots of information that is quite handy. As Dr. G mentioned, we are not able to do this in person, but what we've done with this website is transfer the information that we would have set up in a community meeting room that we would typically do in person, which walks a person through from the statewide information all the way to the more specific project information, and really also give you an opportunity to comment directly on forms in person. We've essentially transferred all of that in-person information to this open house website that you see on screen right now. So it's organized in the same way that we would have organized a meeting room from station to station. So we really do recommend that you start with the homepage and then navigate across the website to the various stations. On the home page, again, there are some quick links that are very useful to get right to get the information that you likely may be looking for. For example, this link here for scoping meetings and the telephone town hall, if you click on that, here is the telephone town hall that I mentioned that we held last week for folks who do not have potentially internet access or would rather be reached by phone. That was completed last week. And if you're interested in hearing those recordings, they are here, clickable on the website to listen to the conversation that was held. We received a lot of good questions from folks, and the project team engaged and was very happy to answer questions. Those were not formal comments as part of the public scoping process, but that was an extra informational session that the team did on purpose to continue the education and awareness about the project prior to a person wanting to do a formal comment. So that is contained here. Also, on the right-hand side here on the screen, you can see our links for our virtual meeting. So obviously here are our links for today's meeting. And I would like to point out that similarly, our links and phone numbers are here for Saturday's meeting. So if you know of someone else who might be interested in hearing the same presentation that we did this evening, please encourage them to visit our website. The links are right here. It's very easy to use, or by phone. They're both equally important and available. So someone can call in and listen to the complete audio of the meeting and use the keypad on the phone to also submit a formal comment, as we've been talking about today. So I'm going to return home. If you go all the way to the bottom, there's another button to go home. So if you are interested in walking through the open house, this button here enters you straight into the open house. So there's more than one way to navigate the open house on the website. That is one way. You can also obviously go back here to the main menu and then pick the station that you want to go to. But let's go through the open house through that click. So here is station 1. We have here, both again in English and in Spanish, an overview of the statewide program that we would have given you in person at our very first station. So it welcomes you to the program and gives you a little bit of background about the phase the project and the phase that we're in right now. If you go to the bottom of this page, those quick links are there again to navigate you quickly to any one of those points. I'll come back to that. But here at the very bottom, at each one of the stations, are any documents or videos that are pertain to the station can be found here. So in this case, you can access the NOI document, as I mentioned earlier here, and that takes you straight to that same link that I showed you earlier. If we go back, here at the bottom of the page, you can navigate here at the button to the next station. So now we're on station 2, which gives you the statewide overview. This has a lot of the same information that Ophelia talked to us earlier about, the statewide program from the phase 1 program and the various phase 2 elements. You can review the documents that are associated with this station here. These are very helpful statewide information, again, about the program overall. You can see the map here. Here is the draft 2020 business plan. This is a document that is produced by the authority every 2 years that outlines specifically the plan to fund and build the California high-speed rail system. And here is a construction update. So these are all very useful, high-level overall program information that you can receive here in Station 2. A lot of people ask us questions about right-of-way, about how my property might be affected, what happens. So you can see all the various information kind of at your fingertips here in Station 2. If we go back and advance to the next station, which is Station 3. This is where we start getting more specific about the project. So here's the LA to Anaheim project section, the map that we showed you earlier. You can kind of study and see and look at that a little bit more closely. Here's the LA to Anaheim alignment. Here is our Colton Intermodal facility. and further north here is the Lenwood component. The same information that we presented to you on the PowerPoint today is summarized nicely here on this page, including the additional detailed maps for each of the 2 project components. Again, at the bottom of the page are the various documents associated with this station, such as the project fact sheet, both in English and in Spanish. Here is our specific board memo, which talks about the scoping program and the state's preferred alternative for the project, so you can see that history there. So this is useful for you to advance to. If we go back to the station 3, again here at the bottom of the page, you can also visit videos and advance to the next station. Here at Station 4 is specifically where we are today for scoping. It's very important that we communicate to the public information about what is the phase that we are currently in. In dealing with a lot of stakeholders for this project over the years, it can be complicated or confusing as to where we are today in terms of the overall program. As we mentioned previously, the authority must comply with both state and federal law, as does any project that's being proposed here in the state of California or in the United States. So we have specific environmental law that governs how that project is planned and communicated to the public. That component, making sure the public is aware of the project and all that is being proposed, is very important with both the state and federal governments. So the authority has a very proactive relationship with its partners to bring forward this information and make sure it complies with the various steps in the project development process to bring a project to fruition. For a significant program such as a high-speed rail system here in California, it takes many years for that planning to be completed. As we talked about earlier, that planning was done already in the Central Valley and it's already advanced to construction. Funding has been identified. That funding is being used for construction for 119 miles currently underway. So the rest of the state is in various phases of the planning and environmental clearance of the project. Here in Southern California, all 4 sections between Bakersfield and Anaheim are in the environmental, at various stages of the environmental clearance process. So for the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section, with the new additional components of both the Colton Intermodal facility and the Lenwood staging tracks, that element is important for us to communicate to the public today as part of the scoping process, so that you have an understanding that that is being part of the project description. And again, it needs to go through its paces. The project scoping period will conclude on Thursday, September 24th, and then the team will collect all those comments and know what they need to study and produce for the draft environmental document, again, to be released next year. So it takes time, it takes months and years in order for a large program such as this to be properly documented and communicated to the public. Very, very important for the authority and BNSF to make sure it's doing its part to communicate the information as it's available to be communicated publicly and proceed through those steps carefully and accurately and clearly for all of you. I am seeing that we have one additional question. So I'm going to hold here on the website. We'll come back to this, and I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint to assist with answering our question that is on screen right now. So let me go back to that. And the question has to do with schedule. The question is, can you please show the schedule slide again? So let me go back to that on my screen here. And there was a couple of schedules. So let me actually go to kind of the overall schedule, which is kind of like what I was just talking about. We are here today in the scoping period, and we have a few very important milestones to still get through in order to get to a record of decision and notice of determination, which is also synonymous with an approved project that then is ready for final design and construction. But Diane, would you like to just quickly review again these milestones to get us to that rod nod? And then I'll also then bring forward the timeline of the dates over the next couple of years that coincide with these milestones.
Sure. Thank you, Genoveva. So on the bottom row, you see we are here and we're currently in the the scoping period, which started on August 25th and is ending on September 24th. And we're looking forward to receiving comments on based on the NOI and the NOP and on this presentation today. Then we will continue with our studies. We'll consider the comments that we received as we're doing the analysis. And we will work on the draft environmental impact statement and the draft environmental impact report, which we anticipate releasing in the spring of next year. Prior to the release in the spring, we will have some open house meetings, which will either be virtually or in person, depending on the health situation at the time, where we will provide you with more information on both the Los Angeles to Anaheim corridor and the Colton and Lenwood components. So we'll release the draft EIR EIS, and then we'll have more open houses for informational purposes, and then we will have public hearings so that members of the public and officials are able to provide comments on the reports. And then we will receive all of those comments and we will evaluate all of them, and we will work on responses to all of them, which will be included in the final environmental impact report and the final environmental impact statement. Those comments will be considered when we are working on the final reports, and some analysis will be conducted, additional analysis will be conducted based on the comments that are received during that the public comment period. And ultimately, we will get to the approval of the final EIR EIS with the official approvals being a record of decision and notice of determination. And I think Genoveva is going to go to the next slide and show you the dates for all of these milestones. So the open house meetings will happen sometime next year in the spring. The draft EIR and EIS will then be released in the spring of next year. We will have open house meetings in the summer during the public comment period. We will also have public hearings in the summer during the public comment period. And then ultimately we will do all the, consider all the comments, work on responses to comments, do any additional analysis we need to do, prepare the final reports, which will lead in the summer of 2022 to a record of decision and notice of determination.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Diane. As you all can see, it's quite a process for the agencies to step through to ensure compliance with environmental law, which of course is in place to protect our environment and respect our communities. Together, it's been quite a partnership that the authority has engaged in over the years in order to bring forward a proposed project that is the most beneficial. This graphic represents the attempt and the approach that the authority has used not only on the Los Angeles to Anaheim section, but all of its sections to engage the community to ensure that it's complying with its project objectives as is outlined in the legal language that gave it the authority to build the high-speed rail system. The system needs to be safe. It needs to be of a certain standard. That is the objective of the team. And at the same time, it needs to consider and respect environmental resources. And that's the entire process of the environmental law, both at the state and federal level, is intended to consider all those dimensions and bring forward a proposed project that is the most beneficial and considers the impacts that are being imposed and mitigates those and is transparent about that in the process. So as you can imagine, the project team has its work cut out for it to understand what the project that is being proposed prepare a preliminary level of design of a system such as a high-speed rail system so that it understands what it's analyzing for all the different specialists who look at it from the air quality perspective or the property perspective or the business socioeconomic perspective, all of the impacts such as traffic and archaeological, all the various aspects of impacts that are potential for the environment where this project is being proposed. The specialists look into that quite specifically and identify through standard language that is then considered and presented publicly. So there's quite a series of steps that it goes through in order to present a draft document that does the due diligence of presenting the information to the public. There's a lot of consultations with agencies, partners, cities, communities in advance of the release of the draft environmental document. So the project team is quite active in not only doing its analytics, but also its communications with all the various entities that are affected by a significant project, such as a high-speed rail system that doesn't exist anywhere here in our country, and it is quite common in other countries and other parts of the world. So here in the United States, California, not surprisingly, is the first state to propose a statewide system of high-speed technology. And so it's going through all these steps in order to get it off the ground. As we mentioned already under construction in the Central Valley and proceeding to get environmental clearance for the various sections throughout the state. So what I will do now, looks like we have one more question, a clarifying question, Diane, for the team from Owen Chang. This is an individual who spoke or provided a question to us earlier. This question pertains to construction. So let me go ahead and read it. The question is, what is the anticipated construction timeframe for the Colton Intermodal facility once the final environmental documents are approved? So let me repeat that. What is the anticipated construction timeframe for the Colton Intermodal facility once the final environmental documents are approved? Diane, I'll go to you, but to answer the question.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start and then I'm going to hand it to Lena for anything else that she wants to say. But you know, the reason for the Colton and Lenwood facilities being included in this environmental document is because they are needed to free up some capacity in the Los Angeles to Fullerton corridor for passenger rail, and specifically high-speed rail. So, you know, the first step in this is getting these environmental clearances, and the project is not fully funded. Funding still needs to be identified. So the high-speed rail business plan says that the high-speed rail system for phase 1 is going to be operational in 2033, but that is dependent on enough of funding. So, so construction dates aren't specific yet for the main corridor, aren't identified yet for the main corridor. And with that, I'm going to let Lena finish up.
Oh, Diane, I think you answered the question. I mean, obviously, there are a number. We're in the infancy stage of this, and the environmental documents still need to be completed and approved. And then, of course, funding is also the big unknown. So I think you handled that question well, and I don't have anything further to add beyond that.
Excellent. Thank you to Diane and Lena both. As you can tell, a lot of interest in understanding the various elements of the project. The environmental phase is quite important in order to outline all the specifics about the proposed project. But of course, this will go to construction one day, assuming funding and everything lines up. So this is a commonly asked question that we receive from our stakeholders about construction timelines and proposed project in the future. So thank you for that. I think we are current with all individuals who had their hands raised or any other comments that have come through. Just a time check for benefit of the group, we are approaching 7 o'clock, so we have another 30 minutes. What I'd like to do is go back to our website and indicate to you some more information that would be really helpful for you to make note of and navigate yourself. Where we left off was here on the Station 4 in relation to scoping. So again, it outlines and presents the timeline that Diane just reviewed for us to make sure people understand where we are in the process. So here we are with both public and agency comments. You should know that a scoping meeting was also held yesterday specifically for our public agencies. We had a couple of folks from agencies or jurisdictions here with us today, but we also offered a separate meeting during the day for our agency partners to participate and formally present any comments that they have for the scoping period, which we very, very much appreciate. Again, scoping comments are being encouraged through Thursday, September 24th, which is when the comment period will close. The team really does need start and end dates to these periods so that they know that they've captured full information from the audience, from the public, and then they can commence their work. If we did not have deadlines, then it wouldn't be clear for all those involved as to what people are thinking in order for them to respond to. So it's very important for us to communicate and provide sufficient time for people to participate as we are asking in order for the project team then to collect the body of information and apply that to their work. So here on Station 4, again, if you go to the documents that are related to this station, we repeat here the project fact sheet. This is another very good read for you all to take a look at more closely. All of the documents, when you click on them, are downloadable in a PDF format. So you can see here that we have them saved on a Dropbox. But regardless, even if you don't have a Dropbox, it can be downloaded directly to your computer, and you can save these as files and share them with others. So the project fact sheet does a really good job of outlining in a very consumable way the information that you saw today on the PowerPoint presentation. So you can see all these similar maps, the timeline that we talked about, the respective dates, and then the close-ups of the two project components here in the Inland Empire. You'll see some additional information about grade separations. As the project team indicated, grade separations are an important component in our projects in and of themselves in communities that separate rail from auto and pedestrian traffic. It's a major safety benefit for communities to have those two crossings separated so that we eliminate the horns and the potential for impact between a train and a car or a person or a bicyclist. So grade separations is a major element of the high-speed rail system throughout the state, including here for the LA to Anaheim section, including Colton, as we talked about as part of that facility. So I would encourage you to download the project fact sheet as another really good resource to obtain the project in a snapshot view. And it's also available here in Spanish. If I return back to Station 4 here using my little clicks there, we can advance to the next station, Station 5. And this is where we outline specifically how to provide a comment. So again, if we were in person, as you advance through the various information stations in the room, there's a separate station, very important, of our public comment station. And we have staff there with forms for people to actually sit down and write out your comment in a meeting. So today we're taking all of your comments orally or through our staff chat. But we also are providing this additional way to comment, which is via a form. So here you can see in the various languages to click on the comment form, as I was showing you earlier, that's available. So we just need a few bits of information for the record, and then we submit. You're welcome to write out your comment here in this form, and you can also upload documents to attach to your comment for the record. A lot of our elected officials, community organizations, have documents that they like to submit for the record that represents the organization's or the district's view, we welcome that, and we just ask for you to use the comment form to submit those files, and it's pretty easy via the website. So Station 5 also indicates here that you could also email your comment to our Los Angeles to Anaheim email address. So if you click here, it takes you straight, well, let's see if my computer will do that, straight to the form. There you go. You comes from your email address and would go straight to the authority. You can indicate your comment here and obviously also attach any documents to your email. We also welcome comments by traditional mail. As we indicated earlier, as long as they're postmarked by Thursday, September 24th, this is an excellent way to make sure that your comment is received by the authority. You can see the address here, and I'll go ahead and verbally say it. All mail should be sent to Mr. Mark McLaughlin. The last name is spelled McLaughlin. He is the Director of Environmental Services at the California High-Speed Rail Authority. Please send that to the attention of the Los Angeles to Anaheim Project section. And that mailing address is 770 L Street, that's L as in Larry, L Street, Suite 620, MS-2 or mail stop 2, that's in Sacramento, California, 95814. So we're asking for all of the mail correspondence to be sent to our Sacramento office where it's collected, and whether you send your comment via the authority's website form or by email or by direct mail, they are all equal, including any verbal comments here today. As we indicate here, verbal comments obviously can also be shared during our scoping meeting today or our next scoping meeting, which is this Saturday. Before we adjourn, I'll repeat that information for our virtual meeting on Saturday. We can also receive a formal comment from you on our recorded, or rather on our project section helpline. This helpline is one that's been in place since the beginning of time in terms of the planning for this project. During our public scoping period, it is available for you to submit a formal public comment. That number is 877-669-0494. We ask for you to make sure to indicate when you record your message on this helpline that you are commenting officially for the record. So we again ask you to give us your full name, any affiliation, and please give us your full comment, and that will be considered equal to any other way of providing us a comment for the record. As I mentioned earlier, we have videos on each of our stations. In this case, this is Olivia Cervantes, one of our authority staff members, walking you through how to provide a comment both in English and in Spanish. Again, if you go to the bottom of the station, the various documents are here. These are hard copy PDF files of the comment card that we would use in person. So if you care to do it that way, you can do that. You can click on this, download it to your printer or your computer, fill out the form and submit it by mail. These are the forms that we would use in person at our public scoping meetings, and they're available here as well in the various languages. So let's move on to the next station, which is a little bit more background about the California High-Speed Rail and our partners. So I should mention, in addition to the Meet HSR SoCal website, which is what we are on right now, that the authority has its main website, and this is what I just clicked to. Let me just do that again. Oh, here we go. It's the hsr.ca.gov website. This is the main agency website that's been in place for quite some time, that provides you the complete comprehensive information about the authority and its business of planning and building high-speed rail here in California. So all of the information that we just showed you in the specific project website can also be reached by going to the main website. You can see the various tabs across the top that that organizes the information for the authority, and you can navigate and get quite a bit of information about the history and opportunities available now. So for the specific project sections that are in the planning phase or construction phase right now, here at the High Speed Rail in California tab, you could reach our specific project sections. So you can see here all 11 or 12 project sections that are organized throughout the state. Each one of these are in different phases of development. Some of them are in construction already, as we mentioned, but here we are, Los Angeles to Anaheim. So this is a great place to go to get the latest information on what's going on with this section. It will always link to the project-specific website that I just outlined for you. You can see the jump-off point here on the main website to the Meet HSR SoCal website. But this is a good place to visit and maybe save on your browser as the go-to place to get the latest information on the project. As you can see, the authority dates the information as it's being updated over time. Here is the NOI, the Federal Register document that we just talked about as the official notice at the federal level. It can be reached here. And then we continue to provide the various information and encourage the public to reach the latest information on the project. In this case, our scoping meetings. So you can see that we promoted our today's meeting, and then Saturday's meeting is also indicated here. We repeat our project website, or rather our project map, everywhere we can for people to get familiar with the project. You could actually also download the map here. We indicate across the project information and try to provide it to you in multiple ways. If you go further down, there's some highlights about the section and features about the planning that is being done. And if you go further down, you can see some of the similar links that we are encouraging you to use now on the project-specific website in order to participate in the current phase where we are now. All relevant documents that are currently available will always be logged here under the documents and reports. So you can see here the MOU for the Prop 1A funding for Link US, for example. That's an element, a very important element of the Los Angeles to Anaheim project section. The Los Angeles Union Station is that first station or most western station of the section, and this document is contained here along with past documents in relation to the planning of the project over the years. That is available. You can see the various types of documents that have been produced in the past, and you can just contact the records team here in order to get historical documents that have been prepared. As we mentioned during our presentation, the Los Angeles to Anaheim section has been undergoing planning since 2007 when the first scoping period occurred. And now as we have these two additional project components in the Inland Empire, we are making sure that we come back out to you and communicate these additional elements of the project so that the public can comment on that and ensure that the project team is studying and reviewing the analysis across a scope of work that makes sense for this area. So it's really important for the team to get local input, which is why we do our outreach everywhere we can, and we very much appreciate the individuals like Dr. G volunteering to help us spread the information to your own local network. So we always welcome that. If you go further down, it takes you back home to the main page. And again, you can navigate the website, as I'm sure you're familiar, lots of different ways. So you can see there's some quick links here to submitting a comment. Again, takes you to that same location. Accessing the NOP and NOI here takes you again to those same links. Back to the homepage, I also want to indicate to you that we are conducting office hours. So let's go to that link. This is where we are trying to do our best to offer one-on-one opportunities to have conversations with you about the project. This is what we would do quite a bit in our open house meetings and our in-person meetings is have staff talk directly to you about your concerns, your property, your perspective of the project. So we still want to do that in this virtual environment. So the way we're doing it is offering office hours. So you can see them here. There's looks like 4 more opportunities during our public comment period now for you to schedule a time with a member of our team to talk about the project. We really encourage that. These appointments are not part of the formal comment period, but rather opportunities for you to just increase your understanding of the project and for you to ask some of the questions that might help you be more informed in order to present a formal comment. So you can see here on Friday, which is tomorrow, September 11th, we have times available between 1 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Next Monday, September 14th, between 11 and 1 p.m. So we're always doing it in 2-hour increments so the staff can make sure to block out their time to be available to you. Next Wednesday, September 16th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. is another time slot. And then the following week, Tuesday, September 22nd, from 12 noon until 2 p.m. And we also welcome additional dates or times that might work with your schedule a little bit better. Please let us know, and you can just click this form here in order to sign up for one of these appointments. This gets you to a Google Doc, if I'm not mistaken here, yep. And then you just indicate your name and submit the information that you're requesting, and we'll get back to you in order to confirm the appointment. So we're trying to really extend the reach and availability of information to the public as much as possible. We're very grateful for the technology such as the website and these Zoom meetings in order to bring this to you at your convenience. We also very much count on the traditional phone lines to make sure that you can reach someone by phone and ask your questions as well. So let's see if I covered everything. I think I covered all of our stations. Let me just double check that we don't have any additional hands raised or other people. Okay, so just a time check for right now, 7:15. I am going to ask or let the panelists know that if you'd like, you can turn cameras off. I know you're still there, and we'll stay on camera here and be available to attend to any other comments that might be coming in. We are available, the entire project team is available until 7:30 this evening to receive your comments formally for the project. And so we'll sit tight here for a little bit, and I will go back to our presentation, and we'll click through just to have that show on the screen while we're waiting for anyone else to join us and for us to be able to hear any additional comments coming through. So we will go back to our presentation. And what I'm going to do is just click through and just have that kind of loop for you while we're waiting for any additional comments. Someone indicated earlier that perhaps some of you have actually ridden a high-speed train in another country. A lot of folks who give us comments about the project come from that perspective and their understanding of the ease and comfort of a high-speed train. One of the things that a lot of people say after they've ridden a train is how quiet it is compared to perhaps the passenger services that we have now, like Metrolink or Amtrak. Those are diesel fueled technologies that we have in place today here in the United States. So again, the high-speed train that is being proposed here for California is an all-electric system, which really reduces the operational noise that happens while that train is running, both for the rider as well as for folks who might be near the right-of-way. There is noise associated with the winds that go through, but it's quite a different experience than hearing a locomotive come that is fueled by diesel, such as a Metrolink train or an Amtrak train, which is what we're used to. A lot of times in our community meetings, folks would say, oh, those trains are real noisy. We really have to help educate people understand that the high-speed rail system here that is being proposed is an all-electric system. Quite a different experience, both in terms of speed and sound and sensation that people go through. And generally speaking, it's a very positive experience to get to somewhere very quickly and in a comfortable way that you would experience on a high-speed train. One of the other elements we talked about earlier was the grade separations that are proposed as part of the high-speed train system. These are a huge benefit to communities as they are constructed and in place to enhance safety for both riders as well as commuters who are driving on local streets that cross railroad tracks. So this is something where, especially where high-speed rail would also operate, such as in the Los Angeles to Anaheim section, parallel to existing services in existing right-of-way. Currently, a lot of these crossings are not grade separated. So that is one of the benefits that high-speed rail brings into communities as it plans its operations adjacent to existing passenger and freight services, is that as these grade separations are put in place, obviously they're put in place for all of the rail that is operating in a community area. These are significant projects in and of themselves that need to be constructed, but once in place, they immediately provide a safety improvement to the community by separating that traffic so we can avoid, any potential for accidents there. That's been the experience of high-speed train systems in other parts of the world, and one that we very much anticipate here in California, particularly here in Southern California, where we have a lot of traffic in some of our local streets, especially crossing the LA to Anaheim corridor. So we will advance through. Let me leave it here on the screen. This outlines again the scoping period process that we are in now, the 30-day period. And we are receiving formal comments through Thursday, September 24th. Which is another 2 weeks from now, so there's still plenty of time. I'm going to leave it here on the screen so that you can also see the various ways to submit formal comments that I outlined already, and that is also available to you on our project website. As we've been here, we do have one more question that just came in. Let's see if I can ask Diane and Lena to turn cameras back on. The question has to do with the BNSF portion of the project, and it comes from Susan Nakamura. Susan Nakamura, that's spelled Nakamura. Susan, thank you very much for your question. I'll go ahead and read it. Is the BNSF portion of the project fully funded? We talked earlier about funding and the various stages of funding that's available to the project over the planning period. This one is specific to the BNSF portion of the project. Is it fully funded? So Diane, I'll go to you first and allow you to see if we can answer that question at this point.
So thank you for your question. for the entire project that's being environmentally clear, funding sources have not been identified.
And I should mention, I did reference Lena to answer this question as well, but Diane answered it perfectly. And Lena is now actually participating in our Spanish public scoping meeting simultaneously right now. So she is available actually to our Spanish audience as we speak. But Susan, thank you very much for your question. As Diane mentioned, funding has not been identified yet for the project, so that would apply to that facility for BNSF as well. Just a time check for us, we are at 7:24, so we just have a few more minutes before we adjourn at 7:30. I do not see any additional hands being raised or staff chat comments coming through. So I will, let's see, to wrap things up, let's go back to our website and navigate a little bit more. As I mentioned to you, this is the specific website for the LA to Anaheim project section with the extended information about the two new project components that are part of the overall document that is being proposed to be environmentally cleared. Let me go ahead and go back to that map. So this is quite unique in that clearly this is the operational corridor of the high-speed rail system that is being proposed between Los Angeles Union Station and the Anaheim Regional Transportation Intermodal Center here in Anaheim. Many of you know that this Arctic station is actually already in existence and will be it is already planned to accommodate a high-speed rail train in the future as that's ultimately adopted, finally designed and constructed. So this is where the high-speed trains would operate coming from the north down into Los Angeles and ultimately to Anaheim. Anaheim represents the most southern end of the system statewide. So these additional components to the east here in Colton and further north in Lenwood, as the team described, is to accommodate the additional freight traffic, is to accommodate the high-speed rail trains in the main corridor and the respective freight traffic that also operates in this corridor so that they can be managed at these respective facilities with the BNSF partner of the High-Speed Rail Authority. So the teams are working together to ensure that what is being proposed for the LA to Anaheim operational corridor of high-speed train, that regionally, comprehensively, what is being proposed can be managed and handled properly and at a level that maintains standards for the public and for the riders and for our goods movement here in Southern California. Clearly, as one of our commenters mentioned earlier, the ports of LA and Long Beach receives quite a volume of the goods coming into not only California, but to the rest of the country. So there has to be a system to obviously accommodate the movement of those goods through our geographic area here. So high-speed rail is being planned in combination with the other passenger services such as Metrolink and Amtrak on those corridors where we are adjacent to those services in similar rights of way, and are considering as well the impact or the combined use or the complementary operations of the freight movement as well through the corridor. So it's through those agency relationships that these plans are discussed and that we figure out the best way to accommodate the demand for both passenger services as well as freight services here in the region. And it's really why the project team is so expert at what it does to figure out those solutions. I think I need to go to our staff chat to see that there may be another question. I'm not seeing a new question. I see Susan. Oh, So can you refresh it, or do I need to refresh that? It's the public funding question. Oh, that is the question. Okay, I'm mistaken. So let me go ahead and repeat one more question that's coming in from Susan. So thank you, Susan. I see that there is a different question that just was logged by you. So I'll go ahead and state that, Diane, for your benefit. The question is, will public funding be used for the BNSF portion of the project? So again, it's in relation to funding. Will public funding be used for the BNSF portion of the project? So Diane?
Yes, so as I mentioned before, funding sources for the main, both the main corridor and Colton and Lenwood have not been identified yet. However, the High-Speed Rail Authority is funding the initial environmental clearance for the Colton and Lenwood components. So the High-Speed Rail Authority, BNSF is conducting the environmental studies for Colton and Lenwood. The High-Speed Rail Authority is reimbursing BNSF for the work they are doing in conducting these studies. That is the public funding that's been expended on Colton and Lenwood to date. Everything else is to be determined.
Thank you, Diane. Again, it's quite a process to plan and build a major transportation system such as a high-speed rail system. A lot of moving parts and partnerships and relationships and planning being done across the board in order to bring forward such a program. I think we have, I know we are approaching the end of our program. However, I think I do see, I thought I saw one more hand being raised. Okay, so we are now at the end of our program. Over the 2.5 hours that we've been broadcasting, we've had quite a number of people come through, and I very much appreciate those of you who have submitted formal comments to us this evening and asking clarifying questions about the project. We understand it's a major program. Some of you may have received this information for the first time in spite of the fact that the work has been going on for some time. We will continue our outreach to make sure that we reach you, and I want to make sure that you are again aware and informed that the public comment period that is formally open now will conclude on Thursday, September 24th. We welcome your comment in any way possible. We've outlined for you a number of ways where you can comment for us. I'll put that back on the screen here. Visit our project website, and again, save that as one of your favorites on your browser, meethsrsocal.org. This is the best place to get the most current information. We'll continue to use that to provide you information over the course of the project. But again, please submit your formal comments if not already by Thursday, September 24th. We very much look forward to receiving them and incorporating them, considering them in the work to come in order to produce a draft environmental document for this section. Again, on behalf of the authority and our BNSF partners, we thank you so much for participating this evening. Please continue to stay involved with us. Have a good night. Please stay safe and continue to participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.